Hello everybody, Zet here. I'm hoping that you guys are having a wonderful and fantastic Friday, and I'm very glad that you stopped by. I'm back bringing you guys another installment of Shooting the Breeze, named Pending, where we talk about different aspects of the hobby, financially, how do we keep up with our cards, how do we keep up with our inventory, how do we keep up with sorting our cards, packing, grading, process of grading, etc, etc. But I'm wondering, before we dive into all that, I think nobody really took the time to sit down and really evaluate what kind of player they are to the game of the hobby. And what kind of hobby I'm talking about? Of course, the only hobby I know, collectibles. And I hope that this video could help you into really think about what kind of player you are to the game. Without further ado, let's begin. Wait. Before we start, please do me a favor and like the video and click that subscribe button to help with the YouTube algorithm and that we could get our videos out there for more visibility. It helps me a lot and I'm very thankful for your help. Without further ado, let's begin. To start off, I want to touch base on the biggest event that has ever happened to the hobby, which is the 2020 pandemic. It was the perfect storm. An opportunity for people to stay cooped up inside with nothing to do but look at their hobbies, look at their stuff, look at their collectibles. And it's also a time when people want to find alternative means to earn money because of the economic downfall. Eventually, that drives an upward pressure to our hobby. Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, even Flesh and Blood. But we're not gonna talk about Flesh and Blood. So when it comes to a market, there has to be buyers and sellers, supply and demand. That's very basic. But then who are you selling to? Does it matter who you're selling to? Understanding where the demand is coming from, understanding who is actually keeping this stuff, understanding how long this stuff has legs to move. But before we get into all that, let's separate the categories of collectors out there. The first kind, casuals. These are the kind of players who actually likes the game, who actually plays the game, who actually really enjoys the aspect of the game. They enjoy it so much they do not care about the condition of their cards. They buy their cards from whatever seller out there, regardless of condition. Of course, every player cares about the condition of their cards, whether or not it's light played, moderately played, heavily played, damaged, etc, etc. But these kind of players, the casuals, they don't care. They like the card for the art, as long as it's sleeved playable, that's all good. I'm not sure whether or not they're the people who would buy PSA 1s or PSA 2s, but I'm starting to think that they might. In my personal opinion, casual players are your best friends, whether or not to another casual player, to another seller, or to a store owner, or to a bigger shark. Because all they care about is the availability of the card. All they care about is getting their hands on the card and playing with it. If they're not playing with it, they put it on whatever display that they could and look at it. Because that's all they care about. The sentimental value, the nostalgic value, but not so much on the monetary value. And those players are what big companies are targeting, because all they want is their product to sell. However, with the market being deeper and deeper, and that there's different levels of casual players and different levels of collectors out there, a lot of companies are creating these really rare uber rarities to cater to those players and collectors. Nevertheless, the casual players are the MVPs of any hobby out there, and I cannot thank them enough. Because without them, there wouldn't be any demand for the hobby, let alone collectability. The second kind of collector, speculators. Ooh boy, the boogeyman of every hobby, speculators. These are the kind of collectors who look at certain cards and project eventual profitability to a card, buy them low, and sell it at the projected number. Why are they the boogeyman of every hobby? It's because a lot of players, especially casual players, believe that speculators are the reason why cards go up in price. When in actuality, it's the supply naturally draining up. When in actuality, there's a lot of factors behind why a card actually goes up. It could be collectors, it could be the low supply, it could be the print run of the card, it could be the production of what the product comes from, it could be the copies being stuck in people's decks and binders and never coming out. I don't think that speculators are the ones to blame for the price hikes of the hobby, but they do know how to capitalize it. Number 3, resellers. Whew. You think speculators are the boogeyman, the actual boogeyman are resellers. These are the kind of people that you see scooping up aisles in Walmart and Target of the new released product, especially Pokemon. These are the kind of people that you see at mostly tournament events where they try to ask you for a trade and they try to get value no matter what. These are the kind of people that claim that they have a store, a physical one, when they don't actually mean that they have a physical store, which is just basically an online store. These are the kind of people that would try to shark you in a trade 100% of the time back in the day. Thank goodness for smartphones. I personally feel a bit of a way towards resellers because they claim that they have a store so that they want the trade to be in their favor. At least in my personal history. But you can't blame the hustle. You have to grind for those cards and you gotta grind for your inventory no matter how hard you gotta start up. Resellers juggle on a fine line of ethics, whether or not they get their product or cards correctly and trying to gain a profit incorrectly. It's really hard to juggle between the lines, but it's a free market, we live in that world. Number 4, store owners. Now these are the kind of people who took a risk starting out. Most store owners that I know have a history with the game of the hobby that they're related in. Whether or not they came as a backpack grinder, they came as a reseller, they came as a casual, or they came with no knowledge at all. But they all took one similar bet, which is basically opening a store, a physical brick and mortar store. They usually buy cards at a percentage for a resale because that's their whole bread and butter. Their business. They have a method to get sealed products cheaper because of distribution prices. Because they took such a big hit by paying rent, by paying employees, by paying utilities, by paying all these things, they're already negatively in the hole. That's why sometimes you could see a difference between a successful store owner versus a struggling store owner. A successful store owner could keep everything afloat whilst growing his collection if they are doing it for the hobby. A struggling store owner would basically try to flip everything for a quick buck, which no harm, no foul. They're supposed to do that, but it's just a very clear difference between the two. Now let's talk about 2 aspects that affects all of them. Reprints. No matter what hobby you're in, reprints are an inevitability, especially when you come in Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh boy. Reprints are a way for big companies to inject more supplies to keep the hobby afloat, to keep availability for everybody. The big 3 hobbies, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, they all have that. That's how casual players keep getting the cards in order to play their game. That's how casual players can afford the cards in order to play their game. But reprints really hit the market hard in all 4 aspects, except for casual players. Let's talk about the speculators. Say I bought 100 copies of the new Charizard V or Charizard V Max, speculating that it's going to go higher because right now it's about 250 and you're expecting it to hit 500. Now, how does reprints play in this game? Well, reprints is going to hurt you hard because if they inject more supply, the demand is going to be satisfied, meaning the price would not hold up to the demand price. So eventually, the speculation that you made on those $250 Charizard could probably hit 200 or even lower. Now this is in the scenario where reprints are injected regularly. And of course this hurts in speculation. If you're a reseller, being a reseller means that it's quick flip. It usually doesn't affect you. But if you are a reseller that's trying to build a good portfolio or good stock of merchandise, sometimes you hold. And when reprints come and you're not quick with it enough, get caught holding all those cards or all those products and you're gonna get burned. For store owners, this hurts the most. Even though that they could buy at a lower price, if reprints come in at a steady stream, all the singles that they spend money buying at a percentage, or even the seal product that they bought and never let go, they're gonna get a big hit. Reprints definitely hurt everybody. So let's talk about something that's more relevant to our times. The whole global pandemic that's still going on. As you may or may not know, the global pandemic actually affects our hobby a lot. Number 1, a lot of printing presses are actually doing releases in waves rather than in one big distribution. As you may have heard, Shining Fates are being released in multiple waves over the next few months instead of just releasing everybody their allocated numbers. With the pandemic, that creates such a bottleneck of supply that could go out to everybody. Eventually it gets fixed, but because of the trickling amount of product coming out because of the waves, it's gonna create sort of a strong bottleneck for the consumers. How does this affect the casual players? Well, it means that they cannot get the cards that they want to play. However, I do think that they're patient, or there's some that's not patient. It doesn't matter in the casual player community. So they would either buy it on release or wait until it gets cheaper. When it comes to the speculators, they have the most patience in the world. They would definitely wait until it is peak supply and then buy at whatever the peak supply is, because that's when prices are undercutting each other by every seller out there. How does this affect resellers? Not much really. They just go to every store that has the product available and just scoop it up and try to resell it for a higher margin. The hustle is real. How does this affect store owners? I believe it will affect store owners because they would try to do a first come first serve basis to sell their product at whoever pre-orders first or whoever comes through their door first, because they still need to churn out the money to pay rent, especially in these tough times. But that could cause them to lose customers because of the availability issue. Say I'm a regular customer for the past 5 years on a local game store. I come in wanting to buy the new Shining Fates Elite Trainer box. The store owner says it's allocated, sold out, wait for the next wave. I go back, in a few months, wave sold out again. I go back, in a few months, wave sold out again. As a customer, it makes me feel like I want to go towards alternative means like online shopping or whatever it is that would kill these brick and mortar stores. And this eventually hurts the store owners. Or I could be a loyal customer and just support my local game store at these tough times. I feel like this topic is very important to talk about because there are a lot of people out there that are saying the sky's the limit, no limit bars, everything's gonna go hit to astronomical numbers without rhyme or reason, because that's the time we're living in these days. But I really believe that once this pandemic is over, which is given a few years, everything will go back to normal or set new precedents. Those are the two paths that we're looking at right now. I do believe that once the pandemic is over, the printing presses will be in more of a mass production rate so that there will be enough product to quell the demand of the players. So for those of you who are out there buying everything because eventually it goes up because it seems like it just does right now, I think you should think again on whether or not that is true. Because let's say hypothetically we're not in a pandemic anymore and that product is readily available. There's a period of time where cards go up because of demand or because of supply. Usually it's due to supply because the print run stops running. That's why you see a lot of Hidden Fate singles were slowly climbing up without the reprint. But once that reprint hit, everything starts to backtrack a little. However, as we're seeing, the demand is overriding the supply that's out there. Pre-orders for the Hidden Fates Elite Trainer box a couple of months ago was about 110 to 120. Even some you may be lucky to find out at 100. Now they're back at 150, lowest. Because Hidden Fates was such a home run that the demand is just over the top. And we're starting to see the same thing with Vivid Voltage as well. When there was a second print run coming in at around late winter last year, early even January now, boxes could be bought at around 120. And again, it's because of the various factors with the pandemic and the demand. However, this print run has came and gone and the demand is still there. Now the boxes are reaching 180 to 200. I do believe that if we're not in a pandemic, these prices would not be this ridiculous and the percentage gain would not be this fast. However, we're living in these trying times and you can't really blame the prices for moving this way. So whether or not you're any of the 4 types of collectors that I'm talking about, or you're maybe one of those hidden types that really just do not categorize with anything or anyone, you cannot deny the actual demand for the Pokemon trading card game is really strong. And I believe that there's actually a few outside factors, especially including celebrity influences, that has uplifted the game and gave it a complete facelift. These are the times that we're living now, so you better buckle up. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of insights as to how you should react whenever the market changes, whenever there's new supply, and whenever you should evaluate on what you should do and what kind of moves you should make in the market. I think that's it for this episode. Let me know if this is insightful or helpful to you at all at the comments below. Let me know what other aspects of the hobby you want me to talk about, because I love digging into this stuff and just shooting it out there. Once again, my name is Zed. I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day, and thank you so much for watching.